Namaste and welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Surrender Yoga with Nancy. And we're going to dive right in and answer another question from the jar of many questions. I'm going to reach down to the top and pull the first question that I can get from here. And I want to set my dimmer. It keeps going on me. Oops. Bear with me. Okay. And I'll take a deep breath before I set the timer. And I just take a deep breath to clear my head a little bit so I'm not all egoic and trying to answer the question from the intellect that thinks it knows everything, so that I can get to the wisdom beneath the mind that we all are capable of getting to. So the question is, why do you believe in all that nonsense? Like karma, reincarnation, consciousness, etc. Why do you believe in all that nonsense, like karma, reincarnation, consciousness, etc.? Okay. There's a couple words that hit me right away besides the three things they're specifically asking me why I believe in them. Is the word believe and the word nonsense. Let's look at nonsense first of all. Those three things that they described as being nonsense were karma, reincarnation, consciousness, etc. So I think they're thinking along those lines of the non-physical laws or the non-physical possibly truths that they don't probably see as truths if they're calling it nonsense. Nonsense means it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to what? It doesn't make sense to the intellectual mind. And I'm perfectly okay now, the first time in my life, with things not making sense to the intellectual mind. I spent my lifetime to date trying to build that intellectual mind, trying to build this image of me as an intellectual, as me as an academic, as me as somebody who has so many years of school or whatever. For whatever reason, silly as it was. I was trying to create an image for myself, mostly, that redeemed me from any shaming I might have had from that deep and, deep core belief that many of us possess because of our conditioning of unworthiness. And so when we feel unworthy, we tend to feel shame. And when we feel shame, we tend to redeem ourselves, if we can, on the exterior level. And so the intellect belongs to the exterior level for sure, and I was trying to build that for many, many years. So I would always want things to make sense. In fact, one of the lines I often use, to the irritation of my students for sure when I was teaching in the adult learning environment, was, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And one time, some person pointed out to me and they said that they wished that I would stop asking if things made sense. But that's what I tended to do, because things had to make sense to the intellectual mind. I had to be able to explain it with concepts, ideas, images, and whatnot, so the intellectual mind could be appeased. Now that I realize that the intellectual mind is only a small segment of who I thought I was, and not really who I am at the deepest levels, I am perfectly okay with saying nonsense, things being nonsense, not making sense to the intellectual mind. I'm perfectly okay with saying I don't know as much as you might think I should know. I don't know. And it's okay and comforting almost to be able to say I don't know, instead of having to come up with the answers that would appease this intellect or the intellect of others. So nonsense to me, if things are nonsense, I'm perfectly okay with them. I do not take it as a judgment. I do not take it as, something against me if I'm talking nonsense, so to speak. The person doesn't understand what I'm saying, as opposed to when I was teaching, when it was so important for me to have everybody understand what I was teaching. And that made me, a fairly good educator, but it did not appease the deeper part of me. I was too caught up in intellect and in creating an image and maintaining the good opinion of other people when I taught. So nonsense now, and nonsense would have been something I would have, reeled back from if someone used that term in my direction, I would have reeled back because I thought I had to make sense. Now realizing that I don't have to make sense, I don't have to appease the intellect, that my knowledge or so-called knowing goes far deeper than concepts and intellectualization. I am okay with that nonsense. So the person may think that karma and reincarnation and consciousness are nonsense. They may not be at the level, they may not be ready for that. They may, have their own reasons why they are nonsense. And that's okay with me. If their intellect is telling them it's nonsense, it's okay. Because this isn't an intellectual validation that we're needing when it comes to these terms. It is an experiential one. And there's a big difference between intellectualization and experiencing life. And most of us spend our lives intellectualizing our way through it rather than experiencing it as it just is in the here and the now with our being rather than with our intellects and minds and our need for doing. So that being said, these things for sure could seem like nonsense to the individual, and I respect that. But I would like to go to another word that's in that statement. Why do you believe? And believe to me is one of those words that belong to the intellect to help us make sense of our world and give us a sense, and it's usually a false sense of security in it, is these beliefs that we come up with, the beliefs that we are conditioned to believe in. So belief is different than a thought, and we know that the thought is the thing that keeps us away from stillness or presence, according to Eckhart Tolle and many others. And we're so busy in our heads, looking at the circumstances of our lives and building commentary on them, that we tend to think the circumstances are responsible for our happiness or our lack of, when in actuality it's the commentary going on in our heads that is responsible for our lack of joy. Joy is something that's inherent in us, and we are not tapping into it because of this thought process that we get so lost in. And thoughts belong to, I believe anyway, the conscious level of our thinking. So we're pretty aware of our thoughts. I can, oh my gosh, I can't believe I thought that, or this happened because I think that, or I think you're doing this, or I think you did that, and whatnot. And thinking and feeling go hand in hand. Feelings, of course, is more from the heart, and thought is more from the mind. But they go hand in hand in this intellect or this material nature of things in our environment and our identification with form and whatnot. So thinking is on the conscious level, and on the deeper level we may get our beliefs. And beliefs, I believe, are just very strong opinionated assumptions about things being a certain way. So they're opinionated assumptions. They are not valid evidence, though we tend to think they are. And most of these core beliefs that we live by and act by, that come up to the surface, the conscious mind as thoughts, and then we therefore react or respond to them, are based on fear. And fear, of course, is false evidence appearing real. So that's why fear and this idea of belief being an assumption, an opinionated assumption, go hand in hand. So when we say we believe in something, we're basically saying, I'm assuming because I somehow need to, because of a lack in me, because I'm not connected to the truth of who I am, to this joy and this love and this absence of fear that makes my interior world, my non-physical world, my soul, if you want to use that word, live its full potential. I am not in touch with that. So I have fear and I have beliefs to help me to minimize that fear. And I may believe, some people may believe in the spiritual things, and I use spiritual, the word loosely, because it encompasses a whole umbrella of things, not just the woo-woo. So people may believe in these spiritual things, or, attached to them, place a lot of faith in them, karma, reincarnation, consciousness and other things because they have fear and they're trying to minimize the fear that they're experiencing. And so it becomes an opinionated assumption that this is the way it is, that karma works this way, that reincarnation means this, or it doesn't mean this, or it's nonsense, or in consciousness, that's just woo-woo nonsense, crazy lady. What are you talking about? Why do you believe in that? These are opinionated assumptions. They are not truth. They are not evidence. So we need to take the time and make it part of our sadhana or our practice to get beyond beliefs to the true nature of what they are. First of all, realize what a belief is as a false evidence appearing real, or as this concept in my head that is not real. It's not as real as the sunshine, for example. It is just a belief that the sunshine is doing a certain thing. So instead of staying in our head where the concepts keep us from experiencing the joy of who we truly are, we need to dismantle beliefs. So when I say I believe in yoga or believe in karma or believe in anything, it means absolutely nothing. Means absolutely nothing to me, and it should mean absolutely nothing to the person who asked me that question, what I believe or don't believe. What's important is what is, and what is the essence of life. What is the essence of this incarnation or another incarnation? What is the essence of consciousness or awareness? And to explore that, to get beyond the limited nature of a belief, of a thought system, of the psyche, to what is real experientially. And the only way we can do that is to spend our time in silence, to spend our time in stillness, or at least some of our time, to spend our time not thinking. Ramana Maharishi said the one way to tell our spiritual progress is by how much less we're thinking on a day-to-day basis. How many less thoughts are we experiencing in a day-to-day type of experience? So that will determine our level of spirituality and spiritual growth. So the more we can get beyond the thinking and this idea of beliefs, which are deeper and more maybe not necessarily aware of it consciously, that are within us and that determine how we progress through life, and determine actually the thoughts that we're having in the conscious mind and the thoughts that we are aware of. It's usually related to core beliefs within us. So instead of responding to the circumstances of our lives from belief systems or from thought systems, we need to experience life as it is experientially, meaning that just is, without the thought system or the commentary. So when I'm talking about believing in karma or believing in reincarnation or believing in consciousness, I'm using words and intellect in an intellectualization in a sense. I can use my intellect to do this, to make that, to get to that cross-secting point between the physical world and the higher or deeper world, by using intellectualization. But intellectualization means absolutely nothing in the big scheme of things, right? What's important is the isness of something. The isness of whatever is with me that's here to experience this life, the isness of whatever I encounter around me, beyond the thinking, beyond the beliefs. And the term karma, reincarnation, and consciousness are just words. They're just other forms of concepts and intellectualization that I'm doing. So if we remove the words and just experienced what was going on in our lives, we would know these things at a deeper level, and we would know them to be true, not opinionated assumptions that are leading us away from who we truly are. Anyway, I'm hoping that makes sense. I know I went over my time and I apologize, but it seemed like an important topic, and I thank the person who asked me that question for asking it, and it is a very valid question, and I take no offense. Thank you so much for joining me, and namaste.